The wine is still dripping down Margot Bellamy's dress when she pushes through the double doors of the Fairmont Royal York and steps into the February cold. Toronto hits her like a wall. -18 with the wind chill, and she is wearing nothing but a navy silk gown and heels that were never meant for sidewalks. She does not go back inside. She cannot go back inside. Not after what Derek just did in front of every person who matters in his world. Her hands are shaking, but not from the cold. Not yet. 30 seconds ago, she was standing beside her husband at his firm's annual gala, holding a glass of Prosecco she had not taken a single sip from, smiling at a partner whose name she had already forgotten, when Derek Ashworth leaned into a circle of senior associates and said the thing that finally broke her. "Margot," he had laughed, that performative laugh he saved for audiences. "She's decorative. I keep her around because it's easier than explaining a divorce to the clients. You know how it is." He said it the way someone might comment on the weather. Casual, bored, as if she were not standing 3 feet away, close enough to see the condensation on his glass, close enough to watch his jaw move around each syllable. The associates had gone quiet. One of them glanced at Margot, then quickly looked away. Nobody said a word. Nobody ever says a word. So Margot set her untouched glass on the nearest table, picked up her clutch and walked out. No scene, no tears, not yet. Now she is on Front Street with no coat, no plan, and exactly one functioning credit card that Derek has not frozen. A prepaid Visa she loaded herself $2,200 that she skimmed from grocery money over the past 11 months, $20 or $40 at a time. It is not much, but it is hers. And right now that distinction means everything. She walks north because north is the only direction that takes her away from the hotel. The streets are half empty at this hour. Just the occasional taxi cutting through the slush, headlights smearing across wet pavement. Her heels are soaked within a block. By the second block, she cannot feel her toes. She does not care. She has been numb in worse ways for the past 6 years. Margot married Derek Ashworth when she was 23. He was 31, already a rising star at his Bay Street law firm, with a smile that made you feel like the most important person in any room. She was finishing her teaching certificate at U of T, full of plans and optimism, and the kind of blind trust that only exists before someone teaches you not to have it. The first year was good. The second year was confusing. By the third year, Margot understood what she had married, but by then Derek had already dismantled every exit. He controlled the money. He chose her friends, then eliminated them, one by one, with whispered suggestions that they were jealous, toxic, not good enough for her. He moved her into his Yorkville condo, where the doorman reported her comings and goings without being asked. He convinced her to put her teaching career on hold because, as he said, she did not need to work. What he meant was that she did not need anything that was not him. She tried to leave once, 2 years ago. She got as far as packing a bag before Derek found it. He did not yell. Derek never yelled. He simply sat on the edge of the bed and explained, in that calm, measured voice he used in depositions, exactly what would happen if she left. He would tell her family she was unstable. He would make sure no school in Ontario would hire her. He would take everything and leave her with nothing. And who would believe a kindergarten teacher with no income against one of the most respected family lawyers in the city? Margot unpacked the bag. She smiled through 2 more years, and she started hiding money. $20 from the Loblaw's receipt, $40 from the dry cleaning. Small amounts that Derek would never notice, deposited into a prepaid card she kept taped inside the lining of an old purse at the back of the closet. It was not a plan. It was a prayer. Now, shivering on a side street off University Avenue, she realizes the prayer might be the only thing keeping her alive tonight. She needs to get warm. She needs to think. She needs to figure out what the rest of her life looks like, starting from this exact moment on this frozen sidewalk in the middle of a city that suddenly feels like a foreign country. That is when she sees the light. A small place tucked between 2 darkened storefronts, warm glow spistling through a frosted window. The sign reads Midnight Grounds in hand-painted script. A coffee shop, still open at 11 on a Friday night. Margot pushes the door open and heat wraps around her like a blanket. The space is narrow and deep, exposed brick walls, mismatched chairs, the low hum of a jazz record playing from somewhere behind the counter. It smells like fresh espresso and cinnamon, and it is the most welcoming place Margot has been in years. There are only a few people inside. A woman with a laptop in the corner, a couple sharing a piece of cake, and a man sitting alone at the bar, reading something on his phone, a small espresso in front of him. Margot takes a table near the back, as far from everyone as she can get. She sets her clutch down and presses her palms flat against the table to stop them from trembling. A server appears almost immediately, young, with a nose ring and kind eyes. Her name tag says Bia. "You okay?" Bia asks, not with pity but with genuine concern. "You look frozen." "I'm fine," Margot says automatically. Then she catches her own reflection in the window. Mascara streaked, hair damp with melted snow, lips turning blue, and almost laughs. Actually, I'm a mess. Bea does not miss a beat. I'll get you a tea. And a blanket. We keep one behind the counter for emergencies. She returns with a thick wool throw, a pot of Earl Grey, and a muffin that Margot did not order but eats in 4 bites because she realizes she has not had anything since a piece of toast that morning. Take your time, Bea says. We don't close till 2. Margot wraps herself in the blanket and stares at the steam rising from her tea. She thinks about the gala, about Derek's voice, about the associates who looked away. She thinks about 6 years of swallowed words and manufactured smiles and the slow erosion of everything she used to be. She used to love teaching. She used to paint on weekends. She used to call her younger brother Nico every Sunday night just to talk. She has not spoken to Nico in over a year. Derek intercepted a call once and told Nico that Margot was dealing with personal issues and needed space. Nico, who was only 20 at the time and dealing with his own life in Halifax, believed him. Why wouldn't he? Derek was a lawyer. He sounded reasonable. He always sounded reasonable. That was the most dangerous thing about him. Margot is so deep in thought that she does not notice the man from the bar until he is standing beside her table. Excuse me, she flinches. He steps back immediately, palms up, giving her space. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. He is tall, mid-30s maybe, with dark hair and eyes the color of wet stone. He is wearing a charcoal overcoat over a dark sweater, expensive but understated, the kind of clothes that whisper money without shouting it. There is a stillness about him, a gravity, as if the air around him is slightly denser than everywhere else. I noticed you come in, he says. You seemed upset. I just wanted to make sure you were all right before I left. His voice is low and unhurried. There is a faint accent underneath the words. Mediterranean, maybe, smoothed over by years of living somewhere else. It is not flirtatious. It is not intrusive. It is simply present. I'm fine, Margot says. For the second time tonight, the words sound even less convincing than before. The man tilts his head slightly, as if he can hear the lie, but chooses not to challenge it. If you say so. He pauses. But if you need anything, a ride somewhere, a phone call, whatever, I'll be finishing my coffee at the bar. My name is Raphael. He turns to leave. Wait. The word escapes before Margot can stop it. Raphael looks back. Why? She asks. Why would you care about a stranger sitting alone in a coffee shop? He considers this, and Margot can see him choosing his answer carefully. Because I've learned, he says, that sometimes the worst nights of your life become the turning point, but only if someone notices you're in the middle of one. It is such a simple thing to say, and it undoes her completely. Margot feels the tears come before she can stop them, not the polite, controlled tears she has perfected over 6 years of marriage, but real ones, ugly and raw, the kind that come from a place so deep you forgot it existed. Raphael does not panic. He does not touch her or crowd her or tell her everything will be okay. He simply pulls out the chair across from her and sits down, and he waits. When she can finally speak, the words pour out of her like water through a cracked dam. She tells him about Derek, about the gala, the comment, the 6 years of control, about the friends she lost, the brother she misses, the career she abandoned, about the $2,200 on a prepaid visa that represents the sum total of her independence. She does not know why she is telling all of this to a stranger. Maybe because he is a stranger, because he has no stake in her story, no opinion about who she should be, no angle. He is just a man in a coffee shop who asked if she was okay and then sat down to listen when the answer was no. Raphael listens the way very few people do, completely, without interrupting, without formulating his response while she is still talking. When she finishes, the silence between them feels clean, not empty. You left tonight, he says finally. That's the hardest part. Everything after this gets easier. It doesn't feel easier. It feels like I just jumped off a cliff with no parachute. Maybe, but you jumped. That's what matters. They talk for another hour. Raphael tells her he runs several businesses in Toronto, imports and consulting, though he keeps the details vague. He grew up in Montreal, the son of a Sicilian father and a Quebecoise mother. He lost his mother to cancer when he was 19 and built everything he has from nothing. He has a way of speaking that makes Margot feel steady, as if his calm is something she can borrow. When Bea announces last call, Raphael reaches into his coat and slides a card across the table. It is plain and cream-colored, just a name, no company. If you need help, he says. A lawyer, a safe place, anything. Call this number. I mean it, Margot, day or night. She picks up the card. Why would you do this for someone you just met? Because I've watched what happens when someone who needs help doesn't get it. There is something behind those words, something old and heavy, but he does not elaborate. Use the card or don't, but keep it. He stands, buttons his coat, and looks at her one last time. You're braver than you think. Walking out of that hotel tonight took more courage than most people manage in a lifetime. Don't forget that. Then he is gone, out the door and into the Toronto winter, leaving Margot alone with a cold pot of tea and a card that feels heavier than it should. She does not know that Raphael Constantino is one of the most powerful men in the city. She does not know that his name carries weight in boardrooms and backrooms alike, that his influence stretches from the waterfront to places the police prefer not to look. She does not know that by morning he will already know everything about Derek Ashworth. His assets, his affairs, his pressure points, his weaknesses. All she knows is that someone saw her tonight. And that is enough to make her believe that tomorrow might be different. Margot checks into a Holiday Inn near Bloor with the prepaid visa. The room is small and smells faintly of disinfectant, but when she locks the door behind her, the click of the deadbolt sounds like freedom. Derek's texts start at midnight. She counts 41 before she powers off the phone. His messages follow the pattern she knows by heart. Concern, then confusion, then anger, then threats, then manufactured tenderness, then threats again. A perfect cycle of manipulation, delivered in neat grey bubbles on a screen. She does not reply to any of them. The next morning she buys a new phone from a convenience store, a cheap prepaid thing with a cracked screen protector, and she transfers her contacts by hand, typing each number from memory. She saves Raphael's number first. For 3 days, she stares at it. On the 4th day, with $1,500 left and nowhere to go, she calls. The phone rings once. Margot. His voice is warm. I was hoping you'd call. You remember me? I remember everyone who matters. A pause. Are you safe? I'm in a hotel. I left that night and I haven't been back. Good. But you need to move. Derek filed a report this morning, claiming you're mentally unstable and a danger to yourself. He's asking the police to do a wellness check. Margot's blood goes cold. How do you know that? I know a lot of things. It's what I do. Listen to me, Margot. I'm sending a car. It'll be there in 30 minutes. Get in. I'll explain everything when you arrive. Every rational part of her brain says no. But the part that sat in that coffee shop and felt seen for the first time in 6 years says yes. The car is a black Audi with tinted windows. The driver is polite and professional and says almost nothing. They head north out of the city, through suburbs that give way to rolling farmland, and then to the kind of properties hidden behind stone walls and old-growth trees. Raphael's home sits on a hill overlooking a frozen lake, 3 stories of glass and timber that manages to look both modern and ancient at the same time. It is beautiful in a way that makes Margot's chest ache, not because of the wealth it represents, but because of the quiet. After 6 years of Derek's noise, the criticism, the monitoring, the constant performance, the silence here feels like oxygen. Raphael meets her at the door. He looks different in daylight, more human, less like the mysterious stranger in the coffee shop. He is wearing jeans and a dark sweater with the sleeves pushed up, and there is a warmth in his expression that Margot did not expect. "Welcome," he says simply. "Let me show you where you'll be staying." The guest room is on the 2nd floor overlooking the lake. White linens, a reading chair by the window, a stack of books on the nightstand that someone, Raphael, she suspects, chose carefully. There is a wool cardigan draped over the chair, her size, tags still on. Margot touches it and feels something crack inside her. It has been so long since someone thought about what she might need without being asked. Over the next few weeks, Margot learns the rhythms of Raphael's house. There is Mrs. Kowalski, the housekeeper, a Polish woman in her 60s who communicates mostly through food and disapproving glances. There is Gio, Raphael's right hand, who is never more than 10 feet from Raphael, and whose eyes miss nothing. There is the cook, the gardener, the rotating cast of men in dark cars who come and go at odd hours. And there is Raphael himself, who's gone most days and present most evenings, who shares meals with her and talks about books and music and the particular beauty of Lake Ontario in winter. He never pushes. He never pries. He never makes her feel like she owes him anything. Margot begins slowly to breathe. She starts painting again, using supplies that appear in her room without explanation. She calls Nico for the first time in 14 months and cries so hard she cannot speak for the first 5 minutes. Nico cries too. He had no idea. He wants to come see her. She tells him soon, and she means it. The divorce papers are filed by Raphael's legal team. 3 lawyers who treat Derek's objections the way a surgeon treats a tumor, precisely and without sentiment. They uncover hidden accounts, offshore holdings, a pattern of financial abuse so meticulous it reads like a textbook case. Derek fights every document. He gives interviews to the press. He hires a private investigator. He is looking for Margot's, and he is getting closer. It is on a grey Tuesday in March that Margot discovers Raphael's secret. She is exploring the east wing of the house, a section she has not visited before, when she hears music coming from behind a closed door. A piano, played hesitantly, with a careful concentration of small hands. Margot pushes the door open. Sitting at an upright piano in a sun-filled room is a girl maybe 7 years old with dark curly hair and Raphael's exact eyes. She looks up at Margot with a mixture of surprise and curiosity. "Who are you?" the girl asks, not with suspicion but with the directness of a child who has learned to assess strangers quickly. "I'm Margot. I'm staying here for a little while." "What's your name?" "Lucia." She studies Margot for a long moment. "Are you my papa's girlfriend?" Margot feels her face warm. "No, just a friend." "Your dad is helping me." Lucia nods. "Papa helps a lot of people. He says that's what strong people do." The simplicity of it catches Margot's off guard. "He's right. Do you play piano?" Lucia asks, already moving on. "A little. I used to a long time ago. You can sit with me if you want, Mrs. Kowalski says I have to practice for 20 more minutes, and it goes faster when someone's listening." Margot sits beside her on the bench, and for 20 minutes they exist in a bubble of warmth and halting music, and Margot feels something stir inside her that has been dormant for years. That evening, Raphael finds her on the terrace, watching the frozen lake turn gold in the sunset. "You met Lucia," he says. "It is not a question. You didn't tell me you had a daughter." "I don't tell anyone. It's safer. From the parts of my world that would use her to get to me." He says it matter-of-factly, without drama, but the weight of it is enormous. Her mother died when she was 2. An accident. I've raised her alone since then, with help, but alone in every way that counts. "She's extraordinary," Margot says. "She has your eyes." Something shifts in Raphael's face, a softening that transforms him. "She's the only thing I've ever done that matters." From that day, Margot and Lucia become inseparable. They paint together, read together, build pillow forts in the living room that Mrs. Kowalski pretends to hate but secretly photographs. Lucia teaches Margot about her favorite composers, while Margot tells her stories about the kindergartners she used to teach. The house changes. There is laughter where there was silence. There is warmth where there was only order. Even Gio, who treats most things with professional indifference, once catches himself smiling when Lucia drags Margot into an elaborate game of pretend involving pirates and a stolen painting. Before I continue, I want to pause and ask you something. If you are feeling what Margot is feeling right now, if this story is stirring something in your chest, leave a comment below with the words, "I believe in second chances." Let me know you are here. Let me know this story matters to you the way it matters to me. One evening, after Margot tucks Lucia into bed, the little girl grabs her hand. "Margot?" "Yes, sweetheart." "Are you going to stay?" The question is a blade, gentle and precise. Margot looks down at this child who has lost so much and loved so fiercely, and she knows what she wants to say, even if she cannot promise it. "I'm going to stay as long as I can, and no matter what happens, I'll always be here for you." "Okay." Lucia closes her eyes, satisfied, and is asleep within minutes. Margot sits beside her in the glow of the nightlight, listening to her breathe, and feels something bloom in her chest that she recognizes as love. Not the desperate, conditional love she learned from Derek. Something cleaner, something maternal. She's never connected with anyone like this. Raphael's voice comes from the doorway. Margot turns to find him watching them, his expression open in a way she has never seen. "She just needed someone who saw her," Margot says quietly. "Not as a complication or a secret, just as a kid. Someone like me." The air between them shifts, charged and fragile, and for a moment neither of them moves. Then Raphael steps back. "Get some rest," he says, his voice rougher than usual. "Tomorrow is going to be difficult." He does not elaborate, but Margot can hear the tension underneath, and it follows her into sleep. The difficult thing arrives at 3 in the morning, in the form of Raphael's phone ringing with the kind of urgency that yanks the entire house awake. Derek has found them. Not the house itself, not yet, but he has hired people, professionals, and they are close. Raphael's response is immediate and terrifying in its efficiency. Within minutes, the house is in lockdown. Gio appears fully dressed and armed. Men materialize at every entrance. Cameras are checked. Perimeters are secure. Margot stands in the hallway watching this unfold and understands, with perfect clarity, exactly who Raphael Constantino is. She understands the late-night visitors, the whispered conversations, the deference that borders on fear. She understands, and she is not afraid. She has lived with a different kind of danger for 6 years. Derek's cruelty wore a suit and smiled for cameras and destroyed you in private. At least Raphael's darkness is honest. At least with him she knows where the edges are. "I can set a trap," Raphael tells her the next morning, his lieutenants gathered around the dining table. "We let Derek's people think they've found a weakness, and when they move, we catch them. On camera, on record, with enough evidence to bury your husband legally." "What do you need from me? Your courage." "You'd be visible, but never alone. Gio and 3 of my best will be within arm's reach the entire time." Margot thinks about the woman she was a month ago, the woman who smiled through humiliation and cried alone in bathrooms and believed she deserved what she got. That woman would never have agreed to this. But that woman does not exist anymore. I'll do it. The operation takes 2 days. On the second night, Margot is reading in the library when the door opens and 2 men in black step inside. They move like professionals, efficient and rehearsed. "Mrs. Ashworth," one of them says. "Your husband wants you home." "My name is Bellamy," Margot says, her voice steady. "And I'm not going anywhere." What happens next takes less than 20 seconds. Gio comes through a side door. 2 more of Raphael's men appear from positions she never even noticed. The intruders are on the ground before they can reach for anything, pinned and disarmed with surgical precision. Raphael appears in the doorway, his face carved from ice. "Take them," he says. "I want names, payments, instructions. Everything." Then it is just the 2 of them, standing in the library with the echo of violence fading from the air. "It's almost over," Raphael says, pulling her close. "One more step. And then Derek Ashworth faces charges for conspiracy, harassment, and attempted kidnapping. My contact at the Crown Attorney's office has been building a file on him for years. This gives them what they need." Derek is arrested on a Thursday morning. Perp walked out of his Bay Street office in front of the colleagues he spent his career impressing. Margot watches the footage from Raphael's study and feels something she thought she had lost forever. Freedom. The divorce is finalized 6 weeks later. Margot walks out of the courthouse on a warm April afternoon, the sun on her face, her future wide open and entirely her own. Raphael is waiting on the steps. "How do you feel?" Margot thinks about it, like I've been holding my breath for 6 years and I just exhaled. Raphael takes her hand. "Come home with me," he says, "not as a guest, not as someone I'm protecting. Come home as my partner, the woman I love. You love me? Since the night you walked into that coffee shop, freezing and furious, and the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I told myself it was compassion, that I just wanted to help. But it was always more than that. Then, what are we waiting for? Your freedom. You have it now. And I intend to spend the rest of my life making sure you never lose it again." She says yes. Of course she says yes. 6 months later, October has set the trees around the estate on fire. Gold and crimson, and the particular burnt orange that only exists in Ontario in autumn. The lake reflects the colors like a painting, and the air smells of wood smoke and fallen leaves, and something Margot can only describe as possibility. The ceremony is small, held in the garden under a canopy of maple branches with only the people who matter. Mrs. Kowalski weeps openly. Gio wears a tie for the first time anyone can remember. Nico has flown in from Halifax and stands in the front row, beaming, his arm around his new girlfriend, looking so proud that Margot has to look away, or she will cry before the vows even start. Lucia is the flower girl. She takes the job so seriously that she practices her walk 17 times the night before, and when the moment finally comes, she is so focused on getting the petal distribution exactly right that she does not look up until she reaches the end of the aisle. Then she sees Margot in a simple white dress with a butterfly bracelet on her wrist, and her face breaks into a smile so wide it could light the entire province. Margot walks down the aisle alone. She needs no one to give her away. She has given herself away too many times. This time, she is choosing. Freely, clearly, with full knowledge of who she is and who she is walking toward. Raphael watches her approach, and his grey eyes hold everything. The cafe, the card, the frozen lake, the nights he sat awake making sure she was safe, the morning he realized he loved her and the discipline it took to wait until she was free. The vows are their own. "I promise to see you," Margot says. "Not the man the world thinks you are, the real you, the father who plays piano with his daughter, the man who walked into a coffee shop and changed my life by simply asking if I was okay. I promise to love you in the light and in the dark," Raphael says, "not by shielding you from the world, but by standing beside you in it. For as long as I'm breathing, and probably after that too." They exchange rings, they kiss. And when the officiant pronounces them married, a cheer rises from the small crowd and carries across the water, startling a heron into flight. The reception is joyful chaos. Food and wine and music and dancing, and Lucia refusing to take off her flower girl dress, even though she has already spilled apple cider on it twice. Late in the evening, after the guests have thinned, Margot slips away to the edge of the lake. The water is still, reflecting the first stars of the night, footsteps behind her. She does not need to turn around. "Running away already?" Raphael asks, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Never," she says, leaning back into him, just remembering. Who I was when I walked into that coffee shop. Frozen, terrified, alone. She turns in his arms and looks up at his face, this complicated, dangerous, gentle man who gave her a card and waited for her to save herself. "Who are you now?" Margot smiles, and the answer comes easily, as if it has been waiting inside her all along, patient as stone, ready to bloom the moment she was brave enough to say it out loud. "I'm home," she says. Raphael kisses her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "Welcome home, Mrs. Constantino." Behind them, through the lit windows of the house, Lucia presses her nose to the glass, watching her parents with a smile that holds no shadows. And above them, the October sky stretches wide and dark and full of stars, each one a small bright promise that the night, no matter how long, always ends. If you have watched this far, it is because this story found something in you. Leave a comment saying I watched till the end, so I can get to know you and see who really connects with these stories. And if this one touched your heart the way it touched mine, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear that second chances are real. Check if you are already subscribed to Heart Boss. If you are not, you are missing stories like this one. Stories of courage, of love, of people who refuse to give up, even when the world gives them every reason to. Hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, remember, no matter how dark the night, the dawn is always coming, and we keep our promises here.